In today's episode, I talk with Coach Tony of the Rockhurst men's program. If you like our interviews, I would truly appreciate it if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're more of a podcast person, subscribe on your favorite platform as we are on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more. And don't forget to follow us on all the social media channels at discover_CS. Thanks. You don't want to miss the 2023 United Soccer Coaches Convention in Philadelphia from January 11th to the 15th. This convention is the largest gathering of soccer coaches, administrators, and fans in the world. Only at the convention can you attend sessions crafted with your coaching level and desired topics in mind. Presented by world-class educators, our collection of over 200 lecture sessions and field demonstrations will offer every coach something to bring back to their own training sessions. Come learn from Amanda Vandervoort, president of the USL Super League, Anthony Flores, youth technical director of the Philadelphia Union, Becky Burley and Brett Ledbetter of What Drives Winning, Laura Harvey, head coach of OL Reign FC, and Dan Abraham, sports psychologist. More presenters will be announced in the months leading up to the convention. Visit www.unitedsoccercoachesconvention.org to register before the next price increase. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Tocco from Rockhurst. Welcome, Coach.
Matt, pleasure to be here.
Well, I appreciate you being here. We were just saying, but beforehand, I was lucky enough to interview Coach Jay Martin earlier, and he's the #1 winningest men's soccer coach in college soccer, and you're #2. So I'm working my way down the ranks. This is good stuff.
Yeah, I guess Jay and I have been in probably the longest of most coaches, so hopefully that the longevity goes with the record. So yeah,
That's right. Well, that longevity is definitely something you got there at Rockhurst, so you're the perfect person to give us some insights about the school. But well, let's start off talking about the recruiting side of things. As a Division II school, when are you really starting to talk to players and build out recruiting classes? What year in high school are the kids? What's your process look like there?
you know, Jay, excuse me, Matt. It's really funny about recruiting, and we go out and watch teams play, and we watch some of the better teams in the Kansas City, St. Louis, Omaha, Des Moines, in different areas we try to recruit from. And we'll sit there and we'll watch a young man play club ball, say. And in club ball or even high school ball, you'll watch a couple of kids who are sophomores or maybe juniors, and you'll look at them and go, how do these kids even make this team? They're not that good. And then by the time they move up to their senior year, you're all over them. You're trying to recruit them. You've got this. I don't know what to call it, but you've got this transition, this metamorphosis that takes place with the player. All of a sudden, they get this experience, they get this maturity, and all of a sudden they go from this average player to a very good player in a very short time, especially during that time of 15 to 18. And so we start really looking at kids probably after their junior year in club ball into their senior years when we really start. And because of high school ball, that's the way it works most of the time. When you deal, and that's where we recruit from. What I've found, Matt, is that in the recruiting era, and I can't speak for everybody, it's almost impossible for me to recruit an academy kid player. Academy kids are ingrained in several areas. Number one, they really are locked into trying to go pro. Or two, it's Division I or nothing else. And I don't have any problem with that. That's life, okay. And we'll offer some kids in academy a really phenomenal scholarships. I mean phenomenal scholarships. And they'll refuse it. And several of them will refuse it just to walk on somewhere. And or they won't play college ball. What we are finding is that I would call some of the lower level academy players, the subs and everything, they'll give up soccer rather than go to anything but D1. And that's a shame because they really D2 and NAI and D3, there are really good programs out there that kids can still develop and do well in. But it's this thing that they have, this mental thing about D1. It's D1 or nothing at all. So we still mainly we recruit from two areas, and I'll let you here my philosophy on it, man. We're primarily a regional recruiter of high school and club balls in the area. Now, what we do is that when we recruit a kid, we think they're a kid who's going to be a good player for us, a very good player for us, but he has to develop over 4 years. They're going to be best in their junior and senior year. That's when they're going to be their best player. So we have to maintain them there, academically, develop them soccer wise, so on and so forth. So we give a kid, when we recruit a young man, we don't put any time limit as to when they make a decision. We don't give them 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Like we're talking to a young man tomorrow, and we'll make him an offer. And basically, after the offer, we'll say, "Hey, look, get back to us, when you're ready to make the decision." And usually, you're ready to make a decision sometime in late February, early March, because right now they're playing high school ball. The only reason he's coming and see us is because he's a local player and he can do it. But when they go visit other schools, they take a weekend or something like that, so they can't do it. So we give them a long time. If they come back and they tell us no in March, there aren't any players around that we can still recruit. That's when we tend to move to an international player, because there's still loads of international players to recruit. So that's our philosophy. We recruit high school kids, club kids, but if they say no and it's March, then if we can't find a player equal to them, as good as them, then we'll go to the international route. That's what we do. Jay, I'm Matt. I can't hear you. The sound's
My
off.
fault. Yep, sorry.
Okay.
Um, I muted because the dog was going crazy. Anyway, when it comes to the regional recruiting you talked about, what are some of the tournaments that you like to go to that are kind of must hit events in your area?
The must hit, and let me explain why we do this. The must hit tournaments we have to go to are the different state tournaments, the Missouri State Tournament, the Kansas State Tournament. We have trouble getting into the Omaha State Tournament. The Nebraska State Tournament is a little bit difficult for us because it takes place in the fall, right during the part of our soccer season, because they play high school ball in the spring. So we have some trouble there. But we try and make as much uh, uh, of the state championships. And let me explain why, if you got time, Matt. There are many times we'll go out to club games, and during the regular season of club, during from December all the way through March or April. And the kids don't take club ball overly serious. And what I mean by that, if they got something to do on a weekend, if they got a problem weekend, we've gone out to many games where they're supposed to be really good games and only 10 players show up for that club, so they don't have enough players. So you get into this thing of they don't get really serious until state championship. Now, state championships is a battle. We love watching it because everybody's serious about it. So we're very, very careful as to which tournaments we go to. And there are a number of showcases that we go to in the different areas, With video, it makes it a lot easier for us because we can get the video of all those games and watch them. So yeah. And what we tend to do is if we're watching players, myself, my co-head coach Giorgio, and one of our assistant coaches, what we'll do is we'll send out that video, and then we'll evaluate it and not tell anybody who we're looking at or something like that. And then we'll come back and to say who are the best players on this team and why. So that's how we tend to evaluate the different players.
Okay. What about camps? Do you guys run your own camps, or does you or your staff work other camps? Do those fit in at all?
My 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 co-head coach Giorgio runs 2 camps a year by invitation, and we're inviting players. We only take 20 to 25 players at a camp, and we're doing it by invitation for players who we really want to see and recruit. That's our invitation process. That's the way we run the camp. We're not trying to get 100 kids or 200 kids. We're doing it only by invitation.
Okay. And whether it's at games, club games, high school games, camps, anything, what is your kind of hierarchy, or what checks the boxes for you for a kid that you want to bring in, whether that's on the field stuff or off the field stuff?
And I know this sounds cliche, but first thing we look at is academics. Rockhurst has high academics, and So we want to make sure, again, as I mentioned earlier, Matt, if I can't keep this kid for 4 years, I've lost, he's lost, everybody's lost. So we got to make sure that they have really good academics. Here's the situation I'll tell you. Basically, our grade point average for the last since we joined the NCAA, which is in 2002, we've ranked in the top 25 of all schools as far as soccer, Division One, Division Two, as far as grade point average as a team. So that we have approximately a 3.4 grade point average as a team. I would say 40 to 45% of our players major in pre-med, pre-den, physical therapy, engineering, accounting. So they major in really, really good subject matter. So they're doing very, very well in these areas. So we look first and foremost at academics. Second thing, each particular position has its own set of criteria. Let me give you an example. Number one, if I'm looking for a defender, first and foremost, if he's not a shutdown defender, I don't want him. You know, when I get kids coming into me, Matt, all the time, I'll say, what makes you good at your position? And I'm talking about a defender, a center back, or a wide wing fullback. I'm going to say, Coach, I can take the ball, I can dribble the ball, I can take the ball, I can shoot the ball, I make great passes, you know, I can overlap, I can do this, I can do that. And my reply to them is, what's your position? And I go, wing fullback or center back. I said, what's the primary purpose of your position? And they'll look and say, defense. I said, you haven't told me what you can do defensively. If you can't be a shutdown defender, I don't want you. Anything you add to me offensively is a plus. But first and foremost, if you can't shut down people, that's it. Midfield, what do we look for? First and foremost, we look creativity. That's where you have to really, really do it. And creativity, being able to, couple things that come with creativity is intelligence, soccer intelligence, being able to be proactive rather than reactive, beating people to create space for everybody else, and then distribution. Then you got your wide players and your striker. Striker, the only thing I don't care about a striker is he scores goals. I want them to be the most selfish, egotistical person in the world. I want them to be able to get the ball, go to goal and score. And every time, you know, he gets the ball, I want him to go to goal. And I'll be mad at him sometimes when he won't pass the ball off because the guy's wide open, but that's the way I want him to be. And so, but they've got to score. I don't want them to be an assist leader. The only way they should get an assist is somebody puts in a rebound off their shot. That's it. Our wide players, we want to be box to box, but they've got to be creative too. They got to be very good offensively, defensively, but they got to be able to beat the wing fullback. If they can't beat and create space for everybody else, then we'll look for somebody else. But they got to be creative. So in general, that's what we look for. Right now, the other thing we look for in a goalie now, the game has progressed, Matt, as you well know, into being very direct. Basically, long balls, a lot of corner kicks, a lot of free kicks, a lot of foul kicks, long throw-ins, things of that nature. And everything goes into the box. So minimally, if our goalie isn't 6 foot, 6'1", we tend not to look because they got to be able to come out and get the ball. They got to. So that's a little short synopsis of what we look for in certain players and positions. Man.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the school.
Okay.
You know, a lot of folks maybe aren't familiar with Rockhurst, and you've been there 1 or 2 years,
Yeah.
I think. So besides what I'm going to learn by clicking around the website, give me some of the awesome behind the scenes stuff, something I may not know just from reading on the web.
When I came to Rockhurst in 1969, that was the first year it went co-ed. Prior to that time, it was an all-boys school. So basically, we had I would say probably 30, 40 girls in the first year. Now we're about 60-40, 60% women, 40% men. The other thing about Rockhurst, academically, it's very, very high ranked as far as regional rankings and a couple national rankings. In the School of Business, which I am chair of the accounting finance department. Our accounting department is one of the highest ranked. Great, phenomenal accounting and finance department. Our BIA department is ranked very high nationally, business intelligence and analytics and things of that nature. It's really funny because, you know, every time I was watching a football game the other day, and they were up in the press box, man, and they had the offensive line coach, who was this big burly guy, this defensive line coach, a big burly guy. And then they showed this person, he's in charge of analytics, and it was, I hate to say it this way, it was almost a dork, this small little guy with glasses, and he's making all the calls for everybody. So you got this business intelligence and analytics that has permeated every industry of our working world, and so we're very good at that, and we've integrated that with all our curriculum, such as accounting and finance. The other areas that we're really great on, Matt, is we have a tremendous nursing school. We have our pre-med is phenomenal. It really is. We have a great pre-med program, and so we're what we call ourselves is a comprehensive university, meaning we have enough majors and we have different schools, and we're really looked at as a more regional. We're not a national, we're not a research university, but we're more regional in certain areas. And I would tell you, our business, our science are both phenomenal as far as academic. Our physical therapy was one of the first schools to create a PhD in physical therapy. We're one of the first schools. So we've done some first as to a smaller school. So and that's the way we want to be. I don't think we ever want to be a school of 5,000 or 6,000. We'd like to get to about 3,000, 3,500, and that's where we'd like to be.
Okay. That's a good overview. So, I mean, you mentioned the academic rigors. What support systems are in place at the school or in the athletic department even that really help, especially new student athletes make that transition and make sure you keep those great GPAs you were talking about?
Every athlete is on a watch list academically, so they're monitored as to and part of this is really good because since we are a smaller school, Matt, every athlete and every faculty member has a list of the athletes by season, and first of all by season and then out of season, in season, out of season. The primary one for us is how we control and monitor the in-season athletes. That's first and foremost. And then we look at the out-of-season athletes. But everybody who is an athlete at Rockhurst is monitored academically. And what I mean by academic, it's only not academic. Are they going to school? Are they handing in work? And our faculty are phenomenal with it. Every one of our faculty have a list of the athletes that are in their class. If they have any particular problem, that's sent to our associate AD. Our associate AD then contacts the coach in question, and then we solve the problem immediately. If they're not doing very well, how do we get them back on track? If they're not attending classes, we make sure they're attending classes, so on and so forth. But as I said, but if we do a good job, Matt, at the very beginning, we don't, like, one of the things that parents always ask us about, do we have a sort of a study group for our athletes? Matt, my athletes come in, I would say 95 to 97% of my athletes come in with a 3.3 to a 3.8, 3.3 and higher grade point average. That's number one. Number two, they come in with an average ACT score of minimum 24, 25. They are in rigorous particular programs. And so I don't have to worry about them. They know how to study. They want to be successful both on the field and off the field. So we don't have very much problem like that. I tell you, if you solve the problem on the front end, you won't have the problem on the back end. And that's what we look for first and foremost. Uh-huh. So, but we do have other things. We have a sort of it's a counseling center for academics that students go over to. Let's assume that you have a particular subject matter in science, physics 2, that you need help on. Well, you go to our learning center. Our learning center then finds a student who's at Rockhurst, who's taken that course, done very well, and then they'll tutor that person one-on-one to help them through. So those are all the things that we have available for our students in any particular curriculum. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's shift gears and talk a little bit more about the soccer side of things. Is there a roster size that you like to try to hit every year, kind of an average size of the team?
Matt, athletics at our schools are recruiting tools. If you took a look at our roster right now, we got about 70 plus players on our team. And there's a couple of reasons behind that, Matt. And I learned very early on, no matter how much you try and recruit, no matter how many people you know, there'll always be players who'll slip through the cracks. Like many times, my co-head coach and I will be sitting there prior to a game, and we'll look at the other team's lineup and so on and so forth, and we'll notice a kid who's from Kansas City, and he plays for an opposing team. Uh, and we'll look and I say, I'll look at him. I said, "Do you know him?" He goes, "No." I said, "I don't know him. Who is he?" "Don't know him." All of a sudden, we look at this kid, and he's a phenomenal player. How did he get? I said, "How did he get out of Kansas City without us knowing about him? How did that happen?" But so here's what we do: any kid who wants to try out for our team is welcome to come and try out. We get a lot of kids who, some kids didn't make their high school team and they still want to try and play soccer. So we make a vehicle for them. So let's say like right now what we're doing, we will have a roster size. Our varsity soccer will have probably 30 to 33 players who will practice every day. Our developmental squad will take the rest of them. Our varsity plays 15 games. Our developmental squad plays 17 games. From our developmental coaches, then we'll take, they'll look at a kid and they'll say, in the last 2 games, he's really played well. He deserves to go up to the varsity. We bring him up and see how he does then against the varsity, whether he can play at that level. So if injuries occur, we'll take players from our developmental squad and move them up. So we're constantly shifting from developmental squad to varsity based on performance. So, and so it seems to work out for us very, very well. And again, man, I keep on telling you, there's late bloomers.
Oh yeah.
I can tell you so many stories, man, and I really mean this, of kids who've come to Rockhurst, didn't play for me their freshman, didn't play for me their sophomore. Junior year, they all of a sudden they played a little bit, and senior years they were first team All-American. All of a sudden, what happens to those kids? I don't know. They're late bloomers, but I don't give up on them. They don't give up on themselves, and all of a sudden, I have a great player, which has a great team, and helps the school have a national reputation in soccer.
No, and I love that because I was one of those late bloomers. I think I played 1 year of varsity high school soccer, but I started 4 years of college soccer, Division
Yeah.
III. So you just never know, right?
You do. It's like this kid who's been in this cocoon for 3 years, and all of a sudden he becomes this butterfly, this beautiful butterfly. All of a sudden he's doing everything. Where did he come from? And you have this great player all of a sudden. Like I said, I could just tell you story after story after story. Kids who walk on and say, "Coach, I wasn't recruited, but I really want to play soccer." "Sure, come on out." And all of a sudden, boom, that kid is a starter. I'll give you one that is astounding. I had a young man come to me in 2004. "Coach, I really want to play here at Rockhurst. I love the school. I want to be part of it. I want to tell you my story." "Okay, what's your story?" I went to this high school in St. Louis. Didn't make varsity. I was captain of the JV team my senior year. "Okay." He said, "That's all I want's a chance, Coach." I said, "You'll get it. I promise you'll get your chance." Came out freshman year, played phenomenal. Just really played great. First game of the year, I didn't start him. I started a senior over him. After 15 minutes, I took out the senior, put him in. 4-year starter, 2-time All-American. He's now the national team coach of under 15, Tommy Heineman.
Yeah.
I mean, just phenomenal player. Just great player. Played, I think, 11 years of pro ball. Played on 2 or 3 championships. Just a great player. So you never know when this cocoon is going to burst open, and great things happen. Great
Love it.
things happen.
Love it. Love it. Well, yeah, if you click on your website, you do see a big roster. You also see a large staff. So can you talk about your staff? How many do you have? What does everybody do? And how does that work?
We try and keep a ratio of a couple of things, but as far as players, we try and keep a ratio of a 10 to 11 to 1, somewhere close to that. So if we have 70 players, then we're going to keep a staff of around 6 to 7 coaches, and that is for development, mainly for 2 reasons: development of whether it's the varsity or whether it's the developmental squad. We're going to develop our players. We don't have finished players, and I don't want a finished player. I don't want a player in high school who says that's as good as you're going to get. I want a player who's going to develop over the next 4 years. I want an upside to that player. So we're going to constantly develop that player. So that's the idea. But we also have a couple coaches who are high school coaches in the area. And we use those guys not so much for development, but for telling us who to recruit. they're at all the high school games. They see the high school kids, and they'll come back and say, Tony, our Giorgio, we need this kid's really good. You need to go out and watch him. This kid's really phenomenal. You need to go out and watch him. So they give us an access because it's so hard right now, and I really mean it's so hard, Matt. When you're out of like last week, we were out of town on Thursday through Sunday. Didn't get back till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock on Monday morning. Then to go out and watch high school games and everything. So it's really really hard. So the developments, the coaching staff has several purposes. One is to and the primary purpose is development overall. But then it's just coaching the players, make sure they do good performance, and giving everybody an equal shot as far as the development squad to show to show how good they are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how would you describe, your team style of play, your style of coaching, and how that works?
Um, Matt, my style of coaching has really gotten different over the years. Matt, how old are you?
I'm 45.
When I first started coaching in 1969, that was my first year. I was an assistant coach to our AD Gene Hart, and I took over in 1970. There was no such thing as AstroTurf. There was no such thing as turf. So everybody had a grass field. But can I tell you, everybody's grass field was horrible. By the time uh, late September, early September, there was there was no grass on the field. There was only weeds. And if you had played in the rain, guess what? There were divots and everything all over the place. It's very difficult, if you will, to play on a field like that and put the ball on the ground and make it a beautiful game. Because if you notice the ball was hopping all over the place. because So we became more of a direct team. As fields got better, we put the ball on the ground. Now today we do a combination. I think we try and do a combination based on the players we have, but we like to keep the ball on the ground. But we've got really got some players who have great speed. So we're going to try and loosen up the defense. We're going to put the ball on the ground, but put the ball over the top. And if we can set a pattern with balls over the top that force the defense, that our players get a chance or two based off that, it forces the defense to move back a little bit, therefore creates more space for the ground game. So it is. We're not what I call direct team, but we will use the long ball to make it force defenses to not squeeze us so much for the ground game. So we create space with the long ball. And I think everybody differs, but the couple games we had this week and one of the games we played this weekend, I mean, it was so direct. Everything was so direct, over the top, over the top, over the top. And that's their style of play. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. So, but we were fortunate this past weekend; it wasn't as successful as everything else. So, but we try and keep the ball a combination of two things. We really do. The other thing we do, we change systems. We'll move from a 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3 to different systems and different patterns that we try and deal with. So it's again, kids always ask me, and they'll say, "What system do you play?" And I always tell them, I said, "Who are we playing? Are we winning? Are we losing? And how much time's left in the game?" And I'll tell you the system we play. That's it.
Nope, it's I agree completely, especially having watched my daughter's game over the weekend. We got to a point. It was like, okay, well now it's time to change that system because you're down 1-0. You got less time on the clock. It's time to make something happen, right?
And Matt, if I lose 2-0, what's the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
But I've got to give my team a chance to even it up. And if I'm winning 1-0, I'm going to play a little bit more defense. I watched the Premier League. And I know sure you do. In big games. If they're up by one goal with 50 minutes left, they're not putting in forwards. They're taking out forwards and putting in better defenders. And they'll switch instead of maybe having two forwards up. They have one and play four midfielders. Something like that. Yeah. So they're constantly adapting and changing to the situation. I don't think college coaches or high school coaches will do anything different.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, Coach, we've covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate your time. And I always like to end these with the same last question, and that's, what didn't we talk about? What else would you like folks to know, whether it's about the team, the school, the college recruiting process, or anything else in general? I give you the floor.
I think we've covered it all, Matt. The one thing that, and I really mean this, I think the one thing that I don't harp on, and it's okay, but I'm worried about the future of our game is the number of international players that are coming over. They're both a boon and a hindrance. And if you notice, more and more teams are becoming more and more international. And what I see is a lot of kids now not playing college soccer because there's no room for them for other teams. What I see is kids now, and with the grapevine, a lot of the kids are saying, don't play soccer because there's no college available for you. There's just not a number of schools available for it. And I see kids not playing. I think less kids are playing soccer than they did before, especially at the young ages. Lacrosse is going like crazy. More and more kids are going into lacrosse. I worry about the future of that and what it means. But like I said, it is a boon because international players come over. They come over. They've been in a pro academy. They come over. They're not. I always tell people international athletes are no better athletes than the United States athlete. United States athlete is as good as any international. In many cases, better. But they don't have high school ball and club ball currently. Although club ball is trying to improve a little bit, they can't match the international academy kids. If you put our United States kids into the academies over in Europe, or even to our own academy, more and more of our kids go into our own academies. They get such a higher level of experience, higher level of competition, so on and so forth. They just become better soccer players. That's what happens. So
Yeah.
I really worry about that aspect of the game. I really, really do. I hope we still, there's right now, and I think for the past 10 years, we've been getting so much better athletes playing soccer over the last 15, 20 years. I hope that doesn't stop. I hope we keep on getting the better athletes and they keep on playing soccer. Because if they don't, I think the American game is going to go down, and I think the collegiate game will go down a little bit too. So those are things that concern me overall for long term. They really are. If you look at the growth, Matt, I get at least 100 to 110 emails a day from international recruiting agencies. I want you to think about that.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, man. All over the world. That's how big the sport has become in that area. It really is. So that's one of the big things that concern me about the sport itself. Period. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Coach, wish you the best of luck with the rest of the season. Hopefully, you can contend for that Great Lakes Conference Championship, and if you do get down to Florida to Bradenton for any of the tournaments down here, give me a shout, and we'll get a cup of coffee or something.
I promise you I'll do that, Matt.
All
Thank you
right.
very much for taking the time to interview me. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Coach. Take care.
Bye-bye.